Check, check, check. What's up, everyone? Thank you for coming back. If it's your second time, third time, 10th time, 77th time, if it's your first, I'm Anthony. And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your ears. If you're watching on video, your eyes. And the guest for today is Nika Brown. If you clicked on this, something about her story caught your attention, or you might know her. But nonetheless, she is amazing. She's a 9-year Army veteran. She has a background of parents in the armed forces, but nonetheless it served her well. And through, she suffered some traumatic brain injuries while serving in the Army, and with that, caused her to opt out. But 45 days after doing so, on July 26, 2016, she built and then made public Innovative Supplies. I won't get into detail as to what happened on that day, but it's a profound day that set her up into entrepreneurship and business. From there, she's been building her empire, as you can call it, and she has much insight into the lessons she's been learning and what she's been through. There's a lot of beautiful rejection, and there's also lessons she learned from the Army that she will pass on to us in this episode. So nonetheless, I appreciate you being here. Let's dive in. Nika Brown, I appreciate you too. Let's do it.
I have a dream.
It's one small step for man.
I am the greatest.
You want something, go get it. Period.
But Nika, I appreciate you being here. I know it's a couple times coming, but your willingness and openness to dive deep means a lot to me, and your story is one I'm fascinated in, as I know many will feel the same. But there's a very specific day I want to start on that will point to that fascination in your story, which is July 26th, 2016. And I would love for you to talk about why it was such an important day in your life and what it consisted of.
So July 26th, 2000, on the e-commerce World Wide Web, if you will. I specifically had an ad run on the Shade Room Instagram page at the time that had 9 million followers. And they ran my ad, and as a result of running that ad, I ended up selling over 8,000 stationery notebooks around the world to over 1,200 customers just in the first 24 hours of my business's launching.
That's incredible. And as I mentioned a while beforehand, it's not easy to garner that many eyeballs and that many customers, and it does not happen overnight. So I'd love for you to talk about the 45 days from departure of being in the Army to that day in particular, and how you were able to build up such an audience.
Yeah, so prior to launching my company, um, 45 days to launching it, I had left the military after spending 9 years in as human resources specialist. And the last 3 years of my military career were spent with the 82nd Airborne Division jumping out of airplanes. And I really feel like that time of duty in my career at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, just launched me into this. Um, Superpower leader, if you will. Like, I gained so much insight, knowledge, and wisdom from working there and experiencing like a fast-paced leadership style those last 3 years in my career, that when I decided to launch my company, I really just launched it from really the leadership skills that I got those last 3 years. Like, okay, I launched, now I need to go get an office space, I need to get my supplies, I need to, like, I could execute so proficiently from just the years of experience I got in the military.
Mm. And how did you reach out to everyone to like get feedback on the product? Because I do agree, and I have questions on lessons you learned from the Army and how you are applying that. But like, how did you get the initial feedback to make things better and to get that many people
Um,
to buy
I
into what
think
your
I
vision
I
is?
just took a big bet on what I noticed was already missing in the marketplace. because when I left the military, I was actually myself enrolled as a full-time college student to finish my undergrad in history. And so I was going to Staples, Office Max, Walmart, everywhere you would go to get your school supplies, and I wasn't seeing anything that I liked, so I just decided to create some myself. Was seeing a lot of dope artists on Instagram, so I wanted to collaborate with them as well. And I just decided that um, this is something that's missing in the market. I'm not seeing it. Let me put it out and see what's going to transpire from this hypothesis that I essentially created out of thin air. And I knew that I needed to do it in front of a large audience if I was going to really get a good survey. And I felt like the Shade Room at the time has the most views when it comes to Instagram. And so that was one of the ways that I wanted to market as well, because I knew like a picture says 1,000 words or a video sometimes. So
Mm, exactly. And something we talked about pre-recording is I didn't even know you were into painting. So it's cool to see you apply the opportunities for other artists to
yeah,
go
I
into
mean,
notebooks.
that's one thing that like when I was on Instagram, I was just always seeing art, and I knew that there were ways that art was being applied to, being in galleries, and different things like that. But I wanted to explore this avenue of what else can we apply art to? And I'm thinking, stationery, because you're sitting in front of a notebook majority of the time in school for 8 hours, you should have some cool art on it.
Yeah, 100%. So going back to the army though, I would love for you to talk about some specific things you learned in there because there's a lot of gems in that. The army's very rigorous. It can be um, very structured and disciplined. So, what did you learn in your what was it? Almost 10 years there. I think it was like 8, right? And what it taught you before you entered and then after you came out. I know your parents were a huge influence on you, which I have a question thereafter about it, but like how it taught you to be so proficient and so efficient and so on the ball all the time.
Yeah, so yeah, my mom and dad were in the military. So I got a lot of the leadership skills that they had got when they were in the military kind of instilled into me as I was growing up, so that when I came into the military, there was this sort of nuance of I've been here before, I understand what you're getting at, how you're telling me to, execute on things because I got the same thing from my parents at the house. So it was really a fine balance for me to transition from living at home with my mom and dad, coming home to that military dynamic a lot of times, and then going into the military myself after high school and picking up some of those same leadership skills that they were, bringing into me into my adulthood as I was leaving high school. And so the things that resonated with me the most was that I got to apply that to my career the last 9 years in terms of building out my soft skills, building out my hard skills. Really, the soft skills and the relationship management component of HR was what allowed me, I feel like, to grow and build out my relationship as a business owner.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I was gonna ask like a lesson they taught you that still sticks with you now, because I find that the things that exist through time are especially true and especially potent. But it's cool to see it comes down to relationships, um, because you have to essentially when you like got the manufacturing company, you obviously have to probably talk to people. In order to do that, you have to talk to your customers all the time. Um, what is one thing you've learned in sales that has that intersection with like the relationship lesson you learned in the army? Because I find that sales can be very, very nuanced at times. In the traditional way, it seems as though it's like the hardest thing in the world, but it's actually just relationship building. So how have you done that specifically with innovative supplies and selling
Yeah,
people on
so
that?
I completely like this question 100% because the way you framed it, like you said, it's a very nuanced thing, sales. And I was starting to notice that like at year two of the company that this the way that I do sales was too inorganic to me, it felt like. And so I was taking a step back, looking at it from a different lens and saying, how can I be more relationship building in my business? And so doing more PR outreach, such as partnering with Usher and his nonprofit, Usher's New Look, that collaboration allowed me to, you know, get my company known, but also helping his nonprofit, which helps teenagers find their spark and what they want to do in their creative endeavors after high school. And so that to me felt more sales to me because, you know, I'm able to integrate into what they're doing, but it not feel so, please buy what I have. And so that's what I really liked about the military, because it taught me how to build out relationships instead of being so salesy.
That's incredible. I love that. And collaborations and partnerships definitely have to have a common language being spoken in order for people to align. Obviously, alignment of values too. But I would love for you to expand more on the partnership you did with Usher's nonprofit, because that's a pretty monumental thing in your journey. And I can definitely see some lessons being extracted from that for others to learn from.
So I was just listening to some Spotify music on my playlist, and one of his songs came up, and I was really into it, and just decided to go check out his Instagram, and found out that he had a nonprofit called Usher's New Look, just through looking at some of his photos, and went onto the Instagram page and saw that they help teenagers, you know, find their creative spark through mentorship, by putting them into different industries that they might be interested in terms of career. And so I really liked that and respected that because what my company was doing was hiring teenagers and having them do the manufacturing of these notebooks. And so I felt like there was some strong synergy there and reached out to his nonprofit's uh, PR firm, and let them know what I was interested in doing in terms of partnership. They liked the idea, and we collaborated on some notebook covers together and then have portions of the proceeds going back to them.
Mm. Simple as that. Just reach out and see how you can provide
Absolutely.
some value
It's
to
like,
someone else.
I
Um,
know it is. It's not a downside. And I think that, you know, it should be used more frequently for those purposes. And, you know, just if you have the idea come to mind and you say, like, you know, this is what I want to do, put it out there, see what happens.
100%. And looking off into the horizon of where you want to take this and what you want to do, I know production innovative is something you want to start with, there being a production side to produce educational materials for your company. But I would love for you to explain it because you'll definitely do it justice better than I ever can. And where you want to provide value to younger kids in accordance with also having the notebooks that you
Yeah,
supply to
thank you
them as
so
well.
much for bringing that up. So yeah, Production Innovative is a production company that I'm going to umbrella underneath the Innovative Supplies brand company. And what it's going to be doing is allowing to create educational content similar to what you would see with Bill Nye the Science Guy, Magic School Bus, a lot of those vintage type cartoon shows and TV shows that taught us some real world experiences, that we really don't think about today because I feel like technology has distracted us so much that we're not thinking about biology and things that are still very important to the growth and development of the human species and just really the environment around us. And so I want to create educational content that's themed around these educational topics and explores a more holistic approach as it relates to the country and the world, and having parents and students and teachers be able to subscribe to this and stream it for a fee, of course, so that they can, have their educational component while still taking notes with our notebooks and really just encompassing this whole new spectrum of how you think about education.
That's incredible. I know, and it's interesting too, because you're someone similar to I that you actually ended up dropping out of college because you wanted to go full time on your venture. So now you're providing educational things to other people within that realm, one in which you actually departed from. So it's kind of cool to have it come back uh, in that full circle manner. But one thing I also wanted to bring up that I thought was really profound, and which we talked about a while ago, was if you were to be given a superpower to continue to build into the horizon and just be your best self possible, because you have to be your best self in order to make these visions come into fruition, what would that superpower be? And you talked about the ability to not see rejection or have it attached to self rejection. So I would really, really love for you to talk about that, because that's super, super, super important and hypercritical when in this realm of
Absolutely.
entrepreneurship.
So I talked about my parents being in the military. My dad was in the military for 22 years. And that was my first real taste of rejection was my dad. Whenever I wanted something, no, dad, can I? No. Can I? No, like I just heard no so much from my dad growing up. And I don't know if it was just the toughness that he had to show or the military or what. But like I heard no so much from my dad that I was determined to hear yes so much more than all of the no's that I heard in entrepreneurship. Um, I was determined to hear the yeses in entrepreneurship to counteract the no's that I heard from my dad. So it was like for every no that I got from him, I was trying to get like two yeses in entrepreneurship to like counteract those. So when you see entrepreneurship for me and seeing those no's, it's like, well, hey, I've had some no's in childhood that were tough growing up, but it made it to where I can accept these no's in entrepreneurship now to, just level up so much more.
Wow, that's incredible. I never knew that. That's and it's a tough thing to differentiate between whether it was like being tough on you to build you up or just a projection of maybe your father's own internal happenings. So for you to like take it as is and kind of heal your yourself from your past by trudging through what you're doing now, I think is so, so powerful and really courageous and really admirable for those in doing their own thing. Um, but I would also just love for you to continue to flow with this and talk about anything in particular that has been top of mind for you lately, or that you've learned in the past quarter or two, or in the past year, that's been so humbling, um, and just continue to go into your own rabbit
Yeah.
hole, because you're
So,
speaking words of wisdom.
I have been heavily, thinking about where I'm going to be going in the next, year, 2 years, 3 years. I used to not think that way because of the multiple traumatic brain injuries that I got from jumping out of airplanes in the 82nd Airborne Division. I used to always just think, man, if I could just make it till tomorrow, make it till the next day. But I'm starting to really just campaign and champion for long-term goals now. And I really want to see myself working at the U.S. Department of Education. Long term, that's a goal that I want. I heard that position is, void at this point. I don't know who Biden has picked, President Biden, excuse me. But I'm very interested, and, long term, I think that I have some ideas for this country and for the educational system as a whole in terms of how we can holistically look at education and really get it back to what it can be for America and for our new generation that's coming up, because this Zoom stuff is it's going to drain it's draining so much right now, and we've really got to think about this. So I mean, that's my rabbit hole, if I can go down and talk about what I want to do long term, because it started with educational products and supplies, but I know that I can give so much more to the country still.
Being of service in all areas, I love it. And I do agree. On top of already having it hard enough with Zoom, the educational system is already kind of dated. um, so before we cap it off, I would love for you to give like a bullet formed way of explaining if you were given that position, like, and you had to put out a paper of like, this is what I'll do, what that will be, and
Okay,
touching on those
so
points here.
touching on those points here, what I would do, let's see, first off, parents will be allowed to participate in the Zooms with their children. Um, and also parents will be allowed to, do more career day activities and come into the school with the child, because, school is not meant to be, let's put these kids together for 8 hours and there not be some interaction with their parent, for these eight. Like, no, like these kids still need to go home to this adult, and there should still be some synergy throughout the day. This adult and this child shouldn't be separated for this long, and there not be some conversation going on. So that would be the first thing that I would encourage as the Department of Education if selected for that position. And then also another thing that I would do, of course, across the United States, free education and free meals. I mean, if you're going to be here, the least we can do is feed you while you're here learning and getting this education. So we're going to definitely campaign for that. And really, I would just put together the best board of members to help, guide me through this, because I have some ideas, but I know I'm going to need to build a team with me.
I love that, and I love that you brought up the last point because that's very complimentary of the army lessons, but also like I might not know everything, and I know other people do. So let me lead this campaign, and do what I do best, but bring in the best talent.
Yeah,
That's
I'm not
very
a,
enlightening to hear too.
I know through the military that you have to have a team. Like, you can't go on any mission solo. Like, you can do a lot solo, don't get me wrong, but a team with you, you will get far.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will say again, I do appreciate every step of the way we did, and or every step of the way we progressed in this interview, and for you being on, for you doing what you're doing, and I'm excited to see what unfolds in your journey through hard work, through dedication, through honesty with yourself, and I appreciate everyone listening too. Thank you so much.